welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin, your host and a beautifully imperfect, stumbling, bumbling child of an absolutely powerful and perfectly loving God, and an addict living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time. Rico 12 is all about exploring the common threads of addictions and sharing tools and hope from those on a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, places, fellowships, etc., to learn and support one another. Our speakers are memberships of various fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, thus showing the common threads of recovery, no matter our addiction or affliction. Today's speaker for the 295th meeting is Jay Westbrook, a repeat Rico 12 speaker, relationship resilience, and his book, applying the 12 traditions in relationships, is his topic today. And we're really excited to have him back and sharing that message here in just a few minutes. But first, for a little bit of business. Rico 12 has several recovery resources in our family of podcasts and social media communities. To learn more, listen more, connect more, and just hang out and be with us, you can check out those podcasts, other podcasts that you can find at rico12.com. That's RECO12.com. And to join our social communities, check out the chat and the show notes. I'll be posting a few things in there. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue our mission. Thanks to all of our spearheads, past, present, and future, and a special thanks this week to Chris for your contributions this week. Your donations really help in this project. If you also feel the desire to become a spearhead and support this cause, please visit rico12.com/support or click on the links in the show notes and chat for one-time or monthly donation options. Your support, not just financially, but with your word of mouth, sharing this message with others, makes a difference in keeping us able to share these messages of recovery. We look forward each week to receiving from the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now I'm going to introduce our guest speaker for today, Jay, and give just a little background on him. Jay Westbrook has been clean and sober in Alcoholics Anonymous since December 2nd, 1988. He is a hospice nurse, grief and loss counselor, national speaker, and best-selling author. His first book, Compassionate Journeys, Lessons from My Work with the Dying, by G.J. Westbrook, and his recent release, Relationship Resilience, Applying the 12 Traditions to Relationships by J.W., are available on Amazon. I'll put links to that in the chat and show notes. Jay, take it away. The floor is yours.
Yay. Thank you so much, Justin. Hey, y'all. My name is Jay Westbrook. I'm an alcoholic in Tupelo, Mississippi. I'm also an Al-Anonic. I'm grateful to be here and for this opportunity. We both are. So I want to show you Nancy Westbrook will be joining us. I want to show you a picture of her so you have the image in your mind. That's Nancy, and stunningly beautiful and kinder than she was beautiful. So I'm old. That's all I can say. It was Friday night, June 7th, 1968. There was a party in Pacific Palisades, California that I did not want to go to, but I knew there'd be some good outside issues. So I went. And about midnight or 12:30, my friend George came up with a little blonde and introduced us, said, Nancy, this is Jay. Jay, this is Nancy. She wants to walk on the beach. It's not safe at night, even in the Palisades. Go with her. And we took the footbridge over Pacific Coast Highway. We came down on the sand and we walked and talked for the next 5 or 6 hours. Maybe we stopped and made out a little bit, but truly just a little bit. You know, it was mainly walking and talking. And then the sun came up and, oh my God, the sun came up and it was like Michael in The Godfather when he saw Apollonia. It was thunderbolt love. It was amore prima noche for us. And, love at first night. It wasn't amore prima vista, love at first sight. It was amore prima noche, love at first night. And we were truly inseparable from that first morning on for the rest of our lives. And I'm so grateful for that. We were both alcoholics and drug addicts, and we did it together till the wheels fell off. And mine fell off first. I got clean and sober December 2nd, 1988, and Nancy didn't want to, but she got lonely and she started going to meetings and caught alcoholism through her ears. And on my 90th day, she stood up and said, I'm Nancy Morgan Westbrook. I'm a cocaine addict and an alcoholic and stayed sober the rest of her life from that first time. And I'm in my first sobriety. I'm about 8 days away, I think. 8 days, yeah, from being 36 years clean and sober. And I'm so grateful for that. And what's so amazing in our relationship is that those feelings of thunderbolt love from that very first morning, those feelings never dimmed, never lessened, never abated. And I'm so grateful for that, And then 11 weeks to the day after our 42nd wedding anniversary, Nancy died in my arms in our home on hospice with pancreatic cancer. And the ground went out from under me, and I wasn't sure I could stay sober, but I got real clear that I was unwilling to disrespect the program that had given Jay so much, that had given Nancy so much, that had given Jancy. We were that AA couple in West Hollywood, California, Jay and Nancy, Jancy, that had given Jancy so much. And so I reframed my pain as a small price to pay for a lifelong love affair. And I took my wedding ring off and took my ring and Nancy's to JR. He's a custom jeweler in Beverly Hills, and said, melt the two rings together and make me a new one that's thicker and wider. And that's what I wear today. So you kind of have both of us speaking. And I'll tell you that I'm just so grateful from that first morning till Nancy's terminal exhalations, those feelings of thunderbolt love never dimmed, never lessened, never abated. And I'd love to tell you that they were matched by behavior, but that would be a lie. The truth is we were alcoholics. So we were loners. Meaning I lie to you, I lie to me, I lie to God. And we were selfish and self-centered and self-righteous and self-pitying and immature, grandiose, arrogant, scorekeeping, manipulative, reactive, unforgiving. I could spend my whole time listing the characteristics that we brought to the relationship because of our ism. And they were so corrosive, and we were baffled and bewildered and saddened that we could not match loving feelings with loving behavior. And then I discovered that the 12 traditions were the instruction manual for relationships. Had no idea. And we got sponsors. We worked the steps. We went to meetings. We took commitments. We did all that stuff. But man, we fell in love with and lived the traditions, and they gave us the tools to transform deep loving feelings into consistent loving behavior. And we created a workshop, and we used to do it for AA as a fundraiser. And people always said, that's so amazing. Why don't you write a book? And there it is. Relationship resilience, applying the 12 traditions to relationships. And that's what I'm going to talk about for a little bit today, because they're so amazing, and they work very powerfully, and they work very quickly, unlike the steps, which take a while to do. The traditions, you start using those traditions today, and you'll watch relationships start to shift today. And that's all relationships, whether they're romantic or in the rooms or at work or school or with your family of origin. We got holidays coming up here, and also on the freeway with other drivers, with ourselves, and certainly with God. And that first step where I'm powerless, no matter what my intention is, no matter what I pledge or promise or swear, I'm only going to have two. I'm not going to end up in a jail cell or handcuffs or a stranger's bed, and I do. I'm absolutely powerless alone. I can't. We can. I get drunk. We stay sober. I drink and use no matter what. We don't drink and use no matter what. Alone, I cannot do this. And I'm an incest survivor, and I've got a malfunctioning alarm system that tells me alone is safe and people are dangerous. And it's a lie. It was true when I was a kid, but it's a lie now. But I don't know that. And so I try and fix the problem that every time I drink, I end up in some kind of trouble. And my life is unmanageable by me alone. And Nancy and I can't stop lying and cheating and all that stuff on each other. We're both doing it. And the solution's right there in that first tradition, that we put the common welfare first, and that the recovery of our marriage depends upon our unity. And I can remember in early sobriety, my hair was bigger, and I had a little Honda Shadow motorcycle, and I didn't think, I knew the IRS, the tax man, was after us, going to seize the bank account. And they hadn't written a letter, which is what they do, but I knew, the arrogance of the newcomer. And I ran to the bank and pulled all the money out. It was only $9,800, not much today, but it was a chunk in 1989, and I put it in my back pocket, and I have no idea how it happened. But the next day, I ended up in front of Glendale Harley Davidson, and in the window was a used red Softail with a price tag of $9,800. And I knew that meant the God in whom I did not believe wanted me to have a Harley. But Jancy wanted a house. But Jay wanted a Harley. But Jancy wanted a house. And for the first time, I made a conscious decision to put the common welfare first, and I left the Harley in the window, the money in my pocket. I rode my little Honda back home, put the money back in the bank, and then we added to it. And in a couple of years, we bought a house that became a home built on love. And that's where we lived until Nancy died, and I continued to live there until 32 months ago when I moved to Tupelo, Mississippi, and life is good here. So we developed a little filter for that first tradition, and it goes like this. And I swear, if you don't hear anything else I say, this will change your life. If you start using this, it change your relationships. If you start using this filter, and here's what it is what I'm about to say or what I'm about to do going to create greater separation or greater unity. And if it's greater separation, I don't say it and I don't do it. And how powerful is that? Oh my God. And it kind of is the foundation for the rest of the traditions. And that works with God. That works with, before I say something or do something, is this going to separate me from God? Is it going to separate me from Nancy? Is it going to separate me from myself? Is it going to separate me from my fellowship? And I don't know how you all got here, but I got here pretty crazy, and step 2 gave me some hope, but it didn't give me any tools. Step 2 talks about coming to believe a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity, but it didn't give me any tools to get restored to sanity. And right there in tradition 2 were the tools. And the short version of tradition 2 says, there's one ultimate authority, and honey, it's not you. It's not you, Jay. And the longer version says that there's one ultimate authority, and it's a loving God. And it was suggested to me, and I was so insane, that maybe if I moved over a little and made room for God, then God could come in. And with that God would come a little sanity. And if I moved over even further, more God could come in, and with that God would come sanity. And that's exactly what happened. And the tradition goes on to say that there's only one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. And so Nancy and I started having group consciences with God, and they were based on the idea that we see what we look for. We see what we look for. So I would look for a loving God in Nancy, and when I looked for it, I saw it. And when I saw it, it changed how I spoke to her and how I spoke about her, and most importantly, how I engaged her. But it was Nancy, so it wasn't hard. Now comes the hard part, because it's early sobriety and I hate Jay. but we see what we look for. And when I looked for a loving God in me, I saw it. And when I saw it, it changed how I spoke to myself and how I spoke about myself and how I offered myself. Oh my God, how powerful is that? You know, because if I'm saying, you stupid idiot, you loser, you piece of, if I'm speaking to myself that, and about myself that way, then what do I have to offer, Nancy? And what do I have to offer God? And what am I saying about God's handiwork, me? You know, so that became such a powerful tool for us. And then in the third tradition, we're called to surrender being conditional, because in the early days, AA was very conditional. They didn't want queers, crackpots, fallen women, beggars, tramps, thieves, asylum inmates, or prisoners. The list is on page 140 in the 12 and 12, because they were worried that the public would reject AA if they let these undesirables in. And then in the early 50s, we got the 12 traditions, and the third tradition was inclusive and non-conditional. And that's the husband I want to be, is one who is not conditional. You know, I love Nancy and she loves me. And if she's having a bad day, or she doesn't do what I want when I want in the bedroom, or we don't see the movie I want to see, or we don't eat at the restaurant I want to eat at, I'm still going to be loving and kind. I'm going to be honoring and honorable, passionate and compassionate, courageous and curious, consistent, playful, spontaneous, imaginative, forgiving, respectful, and host of other qualities, regardless of how Nancy's acting on any given day. And I'm also going to let go of scorekeeping, remembering every good thing I've ever done and every bad thing Nancy's ever done. And I allow what she gives to be enough. And when I do that, it makes it safe for her to risk giving more, whether it's financially, spiritually, sexually, emotionally. When I allow what she gives to be enough, it makes it safe for her to risk giving more. And then I step into the fourth tradition, which the couples version says that each person, each partner, each spouse should be autonomous, self-governing, except in matters affecting the other person or the couple as a whole. You know, and so suddenly I know what I need to speak with Nancy about before I make a unilateral decision, and what I don't need to ask her about. And I've got guidance on that. And that came out of the fourth step, where I realized, I learned in that fourth step, doing that searching and fearless, fact finding and fact facing, searching and fearless, fact finding and fact facing inventory, that my words and my behavior affect others. And so now, when I stepped into tradition 4, I can accurately determine whether this is something I need to decide autonomously, self-governing, or involve Nancy because it affects her or us. And the fifth tradition is so powerful. It says we have a primary purpose, and that purpose is to carry the message. And what is the message? It's love and tolerance. And it says we carry it to the alcoholic who suffers. Doesn't say the drunk, homeless alcoholic. It just says the alcoholic. So Nancy's an interior plantscaper. It's wonderful work with living plants, but it's hard work physically. And she goes from, shopping centers to banks to real estate offices to wealthy people's homes. And she does the design, installation, and maintenance of plants, but sometimes her back hurts and she battles traffic in LA, and she comes home and her arms are full and she can't close the door. And so she kicks it shut and it slams. And I'm like, hey, what are you bringing that anger into my house for? Don't you know I have PTSD? But it's not mine, it's ours. And it's not a house, it's a home. And what if it's not anger? What if I reframe what I'm seeing as anger? What if I reframe that as suffering? That Nancy's suffering. Then this tradition tells me I need to bring love and tolerance. I need to replace my judgment with mercy. And again, it's not hard because it's Nancy. and then comes the hard part. And that's doing the same with me. I've got an incest related PTSD that's usually dormant, but it can be awakened. And when it is, it comes out in some wonky behavior. And when that happens, without excusing myself from accountability or responsibility, I need to be willing to bring love and tolerance, to replace my judgment with mercy, because judgment comes from the head and mercy from the heart. And judgment wounds and mercy heals, and judgment separates and mercy unites, and judgment is touching pain with fear, and mercy is touching that same pain with love. And then I jump into tradition 6, where we talk about money, property, and prestige. And I'm a hospice nurse and grief counselor. I'm not about money or property, but I got to watch out for the prestige thing, the prestige of being the one in the know when I gossip. Oh, did you hear Billy and Sally broke up and nobody knows, but I'm special because I know, and I'm going to tell you, ew, ugly. And the prestige of being the martyr when I work harder on a sponsee's recovery than they do, or the prestige of being when I use my education and intellect to feel superior to someone else, or the prestige of having the worst childhood. And I didn't. I had a nightmare childhood, horrendous torture and incest, and it's so many people in these rooms had that same stuff, and it's not the worst. And it gave me PTSD, but it also gave me PTG, post-traumatic growth. And I'm so grateful for that. And it forced me to forge a relationship with suffering. And that suffering became my vehicle for awakening compassion in me and for others. And that's what's empowered me to be so effective as a bedside hospice nurse, that I can be with suffering with a compassionate presence and bear witness without imposing my tools unless and until they're requested. In tradition 7, which we think is about the money, it talks about being self-supporting. And it's not that it's not about that, but it's so much more. And I don't know how you all got here, but I got here shooting myself in the foot again and again. And so the filter we developed for the 7th tradition is to just pause for a heartbeat and ask, is what I'm about to say or what I'm about to do self-sabotaging or self-supporting? And if it's self-sabotaging, I don't say it and I don't do it. And how powerful is that, to have a tool through which I can put my words and my behavior prior to engaging in them? It's just amazing. It was life-changing. And then I step into step 8 and I do the little 3-column inventory. Who did I harm? How did I harm them? What were the character defects at play? And I'm sensitized to the fact that I can harm others. And step 8, my second favorite, tradition 8, talks about AA remaining forever non-professional. And we were at a Monday night meeting in Beverly Hills at La Cienega Park, and Nancy was talking with this couple, and I wasn't part of it. And I heard her say, "Oh my God, our favorite Italian restaurant's Benvenuto's at La Cienega and Santa Monica." "No, it isn't." I jumped. "No, it isn't. It's on the south side of Santa Monica, just west of La Cienega." And I saw the hurt in Nancy's eyes, that I had spoken to her so harshly and done it in front of other people and been so desperate to be right that I was willing to make her wrong. And here's what I know about being right. Being right is the loneliest place I know. And I vowed to never do that again. And what was happening was I was acting like the professional. And the 8th tradition says AA should remain forever non-professional. And I was being the professional, the know-it-all, the expert, who was competitive and focused on the goal or the win, and rigid and certain, absolutely certain, and impatient and intolerant. And that's not who I want to be as a husband. I want to be the amateur who does it for fun and for free, who's cooperative, not competitive, who's focused on the journey, not the win or the goal, who's curious, not certain, curious. Nancy, tell me more. Help me understand. Who's also flexible, not rigid, and who's patient and tolerant, not impatient and intolerant. And I love that tradition. And tradition 9 is similar in that it talks about AA ought never be organized. And for me, it calls me to surrender being manipulative, because that's what manipulation is. I'm trying to organize your thoughts, your words, your behavior to further my agenda or endorse my position. I'm trying to organize. Manipulation is me trying to organize your thoughts, your words, your behavior to further my agenda or endorse my position. And the problem with that is anything I get through manipulation, whether it's in the bedroom or the boardroom, anything I get is going to be less satisfying than had I earned it or had it been gifted to me. And more importantly, when I'm in manipulation mode and trying to organize you, there is absolutely no room for curiosity or humility or trust or faith. And that's what if I'm trying to get Nancy to do something in the bedroom and she had something much more amazing in mind for me that night, or I'm trying to get my boss to do something, or I'm trying to get God to do something and manipulate God into giving me what I want. You know, when Nancy was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer and given 4 months to live, I prayed for a miracle. That's all. I didn't try and manipulate God into giving me the miracle I wanted, which was remission or cure. I just prayed for a miracle and I got it. Nancy died and God welcomed her into heaven. That was it. You know, I don't get to dictate to God. I do God's work, not God's job. And when I live like that, my life gets way better. And then I can step into tradition 10. And tradition 10 teaches me how to disagree without being disagreeable by being real clear on what outside issues are. And in a marriage, I've got 3 inside issues: my relationship with Nancy, my relationship with recovery, my relationship with God, and everything else is an outside issue. And I may have an opinion on it, but it's not a hill I'm going to die on, you know, and so I don't get disrespectful or disagreeable when I argue. And the filter for this is what I'm about to say or what I'm about to do. In what I'm about to say or what I'm about to do, am I being the antagonist or the peacemaker? And when I follow that, I end up being able to disagree without being disagreeable. And then I step into my favorite tradition, tradition 11, which says our AA's public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. You know, and the guide that this gives me, the filter we developed for this, is to simply say, is what I'm about to, as my loving God stands at my side, would that God find what I'm about to say or what I'm about to do to be attractive? And if I don't believe my words or behavior would be attractive to a loving God, I don't say them or I don't do them. Life-changing filter to just be able to put words and behavior through that. And I got to tell you guys, at 36 years sober, almost a few days shy of it, I am really good at these 11 traditions. I integrate them. I don't use them selectively. I live by all 11 of them. And they've changed my marriage. They changed all of my relationships with self, with God, with others. And I'd like to tell you that I got that 12th tradition nailed as well, but I don't. And I'm terrible at the 12th tradition. I'm hoping by the time I hit 40 years sober that I'm able to better use the 12th tradition. And the 12th tradition is the one that calls me to embrace humility as expressed through anonymity, meaning I don't need that constant reinforcement of, oh my God, Jay, you're so funny, you're so cute and clever, and here are the applause and the parade and the confetti and the band and the sex and presents and the credit and the Man, yeah. Look, Nancy, I vacuumed. She goes, yeah, I know, honey. I see it. And I see the 6 spots that you missed. And I'm glad you did because I've done it the last 9 times, Or look, Nancy, I'm picking up the dog poop and taking out the trash. I know, honey. Same thing you'd do if you lived alone. Why do you need applause for that? So I remember when I paid off the mortgage, I was doing a lot of speaking at hospice conferences around the country as keynote speaker, and they'd give me a nice check, and I used those checks to pay down a 30-year mortgage in 14 years. And I remember I wrote the last check, and I went into Nancy's little office and said, Nancy, the house is ours. I just wrote the last check, paid it off. And she looked at me with this $1 million smile and said, oh my God, honey, that's amazing. I love you so much. And went back to work. And I just said, no, no, where's the confetti and the band and the parade and the sex and presents? And I forgot where Nancy came from, Midwest. She's Wichita, Kansas. She has that Midwest work ethic and values. And she looked at me and she said, sweetheart, they lent us the money and we paid it back. That's what we're supposed to do. And went back to work. And I'm still like, no, no, I want the credit and the parade. So I'm working on the 12th tradition. And that's really all I have. All of these stories and a bunch more, and the filters and the suggested inventory questions. If you want to use this to start a couples group or use it with your spouse where you both write inventory and share it with one another or take it to your sponsors. All of that is in the book. The book is amazing, you all. It's available on Amazon, and I'm so grateful I got to share this with you all today, and hope that at least some of you, one of you, got something out of one of these traditions that you can use starting today to just change relationships and transform deep loving feelings into consistent loving behavior. I'm Jay Westbrook. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Jay. I loved your share. I've written down several things. I've got some nuggets that I've got that are quotes that I'm going to be putting on my wall. I've got some questions here. A reminder to our live audience, if you have a question for Jay, please type it in the chat. If you'd like to remain not have me announce your first name when I ask your question, just put anonymous, please, or direct message it to me. But I'm going to start us off with a question that I have for you. Jay, you said, you had PTSD, but it became PTG. How does one take that post-traumatic stress disorder and shift from that trauma from a disorder into the growth, post-traumatic growth, which may not be an official diagnosis, but how does one do that?
Okay. Yes, it is. It is official. Post-traumatic growth is a thing. You can Google it, PTG or post-traumatic growth. And you don't is the answer to your question. You don't transform one into the other. They both live in me. I've got still have an incest-related PTSD that is usually dormant but can be awakened. Separate from that, I have PTG, post-traumatic growth, that comes out of the healing work that I've done in both the emotional and spiritual arena to heal the wounds that evolved from that horrendous childhood. So, that was largely done with therapists who took me as far as they could. And then it was done with Pema Chodron, who is a Tibetan Buddhist, American-born Tibetan Buddhist nun, and a master teacher of a technique called Tonglen, Tonglen. And let me just put that word in case anybody wants to look it up in the chat. And that did the rest of the healing, that the Tonglen technique, which is kind of involved a little too much maybe for this meeting. But she is such a good teacher of it and so good at simplifying it. So I put her name in the chat as well. But that gave me the rest of the healing that allowed for post-traumatic growth to evolve. and live really side by side with my PTSD. It's just that the growth is usually awake and the PTSD is usually dormant. And I'm so grateful for that.
Thank you, Jay. And for those who are listening recorded and aren't here in the live meeting, I will put all of these references, these links, and everything in the show notes of the podcast so you can also grab those. All right. So I'd like to follow up a little bit on that. You mentioned a situation that you said, hey, Nancy had a rough day. Her back was hurting. She was carrying stuff. She kicked the door shut. It slammed, and your response may have been, hey, why are you doing that? Don't you know that I'm suffering through these things? But you now look at that, you reframe that perceived anger that you think she's feeling with a possible suffering. Now, give an example of what a healthy response would be from that when somebody kicks the door shut and it immediately makes you react. How do you respond rather than react in those situations?
There are lots of ways. No response is a response. It's just like her arms were full. She needed to close the door so the dogs didn't get out, and she kicked it. It doesn't require a response. Or, oh, honey, here, let me take some of that stuff. You okay, sweetie? Give her a hug, ask how her day was. But I'm an alcoholic and I'm overly sensitive, and so I personalize. The world revolves around me. I think she's slamming the door at me. She was just slamming the door, and that's the same. The car that cuts me off. Maybe they didn't see me. Maybe they put their blinker on and don't know that their blinker is broken. Maybe his daughter's in the hospital and he's just like so anxietous about that. He didn't notice. And now he sees there's the exit for the hospital and I got to get over. And he just gets over. It's like, Jay, maybe he's suffering. Maybe his boss is going to fire him if he's late and he's running late. And it's just, you could call it Southern graciousness, which is just giving people the benefit of the doubt. But it's because I'm an alcoholic and I tend to take things personally. I do a reframing all the time of anything that I see or hear that I think is offensive or disrespectful or discounting or rude. It's like, Jay, reframe that as suffering. That person is suffering in some way. Maybe it's just they have no self-awareness. That's a hard way to live. Or they live with tremendous suspicion. What a hard way to live. Or they live with great victimhood, and so they're easily offended. And it's like, oh my God, honey, that's just like, I can be compassionate. I don't have to argue with them. I don't have to judge them. I just have to bring mercy.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting some questions.
Yep, we are. So this first one is an anonymous question. It says, I am a few years abstinent and continuing to have lots of self-loathing thoughts. You talked about using the tradition to respond to this. How did you practice this, and when did the thoughts go away?
I'm sorry, just which thoughts? I was trying to read it.
Yep. Self-loathing. So I'll reread it. I am a few years abstinent and continue to have lots of self-loathing thoughts. You talked about using the tradition to respond to this. How did you practice this, and when did the thoughts go away?
Yeah. It's what I talked about in tradition too, is that idea of we see what we look for. We see what we look for. When I'm lecturing to young physicians and medical students and nursing students, I love to do this exercise where, depending on what room I'm in, I'll say something like, I want you to look around this room, spot and remember everything you can that's silver or black. Take 6 seconds, go. And at the end of 6 seconds, I say, everyone close your eyes. Now yell out everything you saw that was blue. And it's silent. And then I'll say, now open your eyes. And they look around and there's blue everywhere, and they never saw it because what they were looking for was silver or black. And they just overlooked the blue because they weren't looking for it. And the same is true in if I'm looking for what a loser, what an idiot, what a piece of shit Jay is, that's what I'm going to see. We see what we look for. And so I have to start looking for something else. And so I look for a loving God in me. And when I see it, it changes how I speak to myself, how I speak about myself, and how I offer myself. Francine Ward, who is such an amazing woman and speaker, wrote a book called Esteemable Acts. And it's based on the idea that self-esteem comes from doing esteemable acts. And that often starts at the meeting. Can I stand at the door and put my hand out and say, hey, I'm Jay, welcome. Welcome to the meeting. Welcome to AA, or welcome to Al-Anon, or welcome to whatever the program is. Can I help put the chairs away at the end of the meeting? Can I just start doing, can I let the guy at the four-way stop sign go first? Can I pull through a drive-through Starbucks and pay for the car behind me and then just drive away? And so I start doing things that change how I perceive myself. I was standing in the death chamber. I do a little hospice work in the corrections community, and the prison I go to more than any other is Angola State Penitentiary, right outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And it's the largest maximum security prison in the United States. And they have an active death chamber. 89% of the men there will die there, because it's Louisiana, and they give sentences like 320 years to life, 240 years to life. And I was standing in the death chamber with the warden, and I said, hey, Burl, the last three guys executed in this room, what'd they do? I had no reason to ask that, but I asked, and so he answered. And it's horrendous stuff. But then he looked at me and he said, but you know what, Jay? Well, I don't have any problem carrying out the court-mandated consequences of the prisoner's behavior. I will tell you that every man who's executed in this room, I hold his hand. I tell him that he's loved and he's not alone. And it's like that warden lives what any of you who have ever heard me speak have heard me say, and that is that God has no grandkids, only kids, and God doesn't make junk. And that's true no matter how many times I've gone out into the world and engaged in behavior to try and prove the lie that when God made me, he did make junk. But it's a lie. God has no grandkids, only kids, and God doesn't make junk. So when we start looking for that and we start acting accordingly, the self-loathing starts to become balanced with self-esteem. And there is a shift, and it's usually gradual. And we use that seventh tradition filter, is what I'm about to say or what I'm about to do, self-sabotaging or self-supporting. And we stop doing self-sabotaging behaviors. And some guy, when I got here, I saw the world through black and white, always, never, everyone, nobody. And I thought everyone in AA was happy except me. And I ran around saying, what do I need to do to get happy? What do I need to do to get happy? And some old timer said to me, kid, this is a long time ago, kid, stop worrying about what you should do to get happy and just stop doing the things that are making you unhappy. And it was some of the best advice I ever got. It was so powerful. So those are the things you do to start making the shift away from self-loathing, and it's gradual. And if you keep at it, it happens. There's a question.
Yep.
Do you see that one? Oh,
was from Cheryl? Is that the one you want me? All right, let me read that one. So, Jay, this one's from Cheryl. I'm in a 12-step program, gratefully recovered, but my husband is not in a 12-step program. How do I practice the 12 traditions of relationship resilience in this dynamic? And
okay, so same way Nancy did when she didn't want to get sober. I did, she didn't, but she got lonely and started going to meetings, and She caught alcoholism through her ears and then stood up on my 90th day. So learn the traditions, get the book, start practicing them, and you will change. And most likely her husband will say, wow, honey, you're different. There's something, what's going on? And you can say, I learned this thing that comes out of the traditions in AA, but the guy who wrote the book says right at the beginning of the book, they work for everyone. Whether you're in this 12-step program or that 12-step program, and you've never heard of a 12-step program, if you start putting your words and behaviors through these filters, is this going to create greater separation or greater unity? Is this self-sabotaging or self-supporting? Am I being an antagonist or a peacemaker? Would a loving God find this, what I'm about to say or what I'm about to do, to be attractive? Behaviors will change. And so this is very much doable by anybody, whether they're in a 12-step program or not. And if they're not initially open to it, then hopefully what you do is you start using them and they become curious about the shift they're witnessing.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. All right, next thing comes in from Ashley, and I love what she says here. She says, "Longtime listener, first time caller. Thank you so much, Jay. I got so much out of your share. Congratulations on your upcoming 36th sobriety anniversary." And Ashley would love to hear how you caught yourself in the moment with Nancy to not say or do something negative. Did you work a 10th step, or what thoughts or actions would you take?
I guess it starts with paying attention, with starting to have a genuine curiosity, and paying attention. So that story I told about the eighth tradition, where we're at that meeting and I'm just helping break the meeting down. I'm not part of that conversation. Nancy's talking to this really nice couple. We're not going to dinner with them. And she said the thing about the Italian restaurant at La Cienega in Santa Monica. And I jumped, no, it isn't. And because I was paying attention, I saw the hurt in her eyes. In the old days, I was just like a steamroller. I didn't pay attention. I just would go on with I'm going to show you how smart I am and and that's my biggest character defect today, is still comes out of that 12th tradition, trying to be cute and clever and say things that I think are cute and clever because I want everybody's laughter or approval and I pay attention now and I pause. I guess that's the biggest thing, is the pause. You can't use any of these filters that I've talked about unless you learn to pause just for a heartbeat. And the big book says, as we go through our day, when agitated, or we pause when agitated or in doubt. And, I would offer that maybe we just pause for a moment always. And if we can do that, then we can use these filters. And I remember, Log Cabin, pre-pandemic, Log Cabin was my home group in Los Angeles, 7:30 a.m., Monday through Friday, in West Hollywood. And it was a big 150, 180 people every morning. And we always asked, are there any out-of-towners? And one morning, this woman raised her hand, and she said, yes, I'm Sally from London. And I went smashing, and the whole room broke up laughing. And then this guy said, yeah, I'm Billy Joe from Mobile, Alabama. And I said, bless your little heart. And the whole room just laughed. And then this guy said, my name is John. I'm from New Jersey. And I went, oh, I'm so sorry. And the whole room laughed. And then the meeting went on and the speaker spoke. And then it was time for sharing. And the guy from New Jersey raised his hand and he said, my name is John. I'm an alcoholic from New Jersey. And I just flew into Los Angeles to bury my mother. And I got to tell you, you guys making fun of me and getting a laugh out of my home state at my expense doesn't make me feel very welcome in this meeting. And there's no way to take it back. I mean, everybody in the room felt like shit because they had all laughed. I felt even worse because I'm the one who said it. And I went up to him at the end of the meeting and I made an amends. But, if I drop a dinner plate on the floor and it breaks and I go, oh my God, plate, I'm so sorry. The damn plate is still broken, and the guy said it's fine, but the taste in his mouth of log cabin will always be that we weren't real welcoming, we weren't very sensitive, and we made a joke at his expense, and that's not how I want to be. So I need to pause and before I say something that I think is cute and clever and going to hurt or offend somebody, just so I can get a laugh and have people go, oh, Jay is so cute, so clever, so funny. So I need to pause and use any of these traditions. Is this greater separation or greater unity? Would God find it attractive? Loving God find it attractive? Is it self-sabotage? I mean, all of them, any one of them would help keep my mouth shut in those situations. Does that answer it?
Yeah, that was powerful. Thank you, Jay. All right, we've got several more questions. We'll get to as many as we can here. If we don't get to them, we'll list them in the WhatsApp group and everything, and just get some input on those. I'll also be able to connect you with Jay that you can ask these questions to him directly after the meeting. You can find that stuff in the show notes, and we'll have you can email me at rico12pod@gmail.com. Okay, so this question from Tom. Tom says, you listed some attributes you strive for in your marriage. One of them was spontaneity and playfulness. I work my recovery and my wife isn't in the rooms, but we're growing and learning and she's finding her own way. I try to work these traditions and they're helping, but I miss the spark and the excitement we had at the start of our relationship. We don't laugh like kids like we used to. We're also now parents. I wonder if recovery, awareness of how I have and sometimes continue to hurt my wife made me too serious. What am I missing that can help me reconnect with my playfulness and childish spirit?
Yeah, I don't know. What I hear, Nancy and I never had kids because we don't like them. Thank God we didn't have them. There are people who don't like them and they go ahead and have them anyway. I don't understand, but we never had kids. And here's my alcoholism. When I got sober, I was associate director of medical research at a children's hospital in Los Angeles. That's alcoholism. I don't like children, and I'm working at a children's hospital because I think the title, my job title, will impress you. It didn't. And thank God I made the leap to hospice, which is where I was home and where I've been for over 3 decades. What I hear, is I heard a thing the other night that said that, when there's Hell Week for those that are training to be Navy SEALs, like they wake them up in the middle of the night with this loud noise and they're sleep deprived and there's like loud noise and it's sensory overload and it's just like being a father and except it only lasts a week and maybe they should have sent a bunch of new fathers in to kill bin Laden instead of sending Navy SEALs. And that's sort of my idea of what it's like. It's consumptive and it's never ending. And kids just want so much, and the finances are not easy when you've got kids. And I don't know if there may be a period of time when kids are young that it's hard to find the playfulness and spontaneity, at least until they start school or something. I'm guessing because I don't know, but that I would think that would make it hard. I could be wrong, but maybe just sitting down and talking and saying this has to be a priority for us and making time for that and not making rigid plans, but just like let's go out and we'll figure out something to do. I don't know. I'm probably not the best person to answer that question. But I see there's one there from Jay, if you
Yeah,
want to.
about financial insecurity. We'll get to that
Yeah.
one here right now. This may be our last question here. Have you and Nancy dealt with financial instability or had an issue who makes more money or is putting more effort in having the financial stability? How did you both navigate this?
Yeah, we were both alcoholics and everything I said, grandiose and arrogant and immature and very little impulse control. We overspent. We played the big shots. We never drank call brands. If we drank gin, it was only Tanqueray. If we drank tequila, it was only Cuervo Gold. If we drank bourbon, it was only Wild Turkey or Jack Daniel. It was like just playing the big shots and only going to expensive restaurants. When we came in, we had about $110,000 in credit card debt, and there were times Nancy made more than me, and there were times I made more than Nancy. It never mattered. We split the bills, like we both each month we'd both pay half the mortgage. And if either or both of us or neither of us had extra, we would add that in to try and pay down the principal. But we didn't, there was no scorekeeping about, well, I put in this much and you put in that much. It was like each person was responsible for budgeting and being able to pay half the mortgage and half the electric bill and and then if the other person had more to put in, yay, but we didn't keep track. We both had separate. I had a checking and savings account, and Nancy had a checking and savings account, and she was on my account, so I was on hers, but I never drew on hers, and she never drew on mine. It was just we were on them for emergencies. But she was a plantscaper. She'd go out and one day she'd get a client who said, I want this, and she'd go spend $1,800 on plants or I book a flight because I was lecturing at here or there and they were going to reimburse me. So we just weren't in a situation where we could have a single account, because if we both did that on the same day, the account would have been overdrawn. So we both had access to each other's accounts, but we didn't draw on them, and we shared expenses to the best of our ability. And we started using some sponsor direction, both of us, about why don't you go to the nice coffee shop for dinner instead of going out for $140 dinner at Ruth's Chris's Steakhouse? Why don't you start doing a little, what do they call that? Oh, cooking, a little shopping and cooking instead of going out to eat, and save going out to eat for once a week or once, and we did that, and we got our spending under control, and it took a few years, and we paid that debt down. They're very patient. As long as you're making payments and they're getting interest, they're very happy to let you take a long time to pay credit cards back, because that's how they make their money. They don't like it, pay it all off. So
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jay. We're coming up on the top of the hour here. We've got several more questions. I'll post them in the WhatsApp community. If you want to join in there, go to rico12pod@gmail.com. Send me an email. I'll get you in that community. We'll get there. If you want to connect with Jay, send me that email. I'll make sure you guys get connected so that you can, any questions you can email to him and he can take it where he wants to from that. Thank you so much for a fantastic Rico 12 weekly speaker meeting, Jay. Next Friday, I'm going to be off the grid, spending quality time with my grandson and children. But our lovely Liza L, who has been a guest speaker here and who's filled in for me once before, will be filling in as our host and will facilitate an amazing and powerful meeting at the same time in the same place. So stay tuned on the WhatsApp community on our email list for more information on that. Now let's launch off into the rest of our day with the we version of the Serenity Prayer that Jay will say for us.
Yay. Okay, let's take a moment of silence for the alcoholic who suffers or for whoever suffers in or out of this room, and then the we version of the Serenity Prayer. Prayer, God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen and amen. And I did put my number in the chat if anybody wants to reach out.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jay. Remember, everybody, there's one who has all power. That one is God, and I am not God, and you are not God. May you find God now. Keep coming back. When you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
I've seen stars fall from above. I've fallen in and out of love. I've been high and I've been low. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. I've seen a boy become a man. He got lost without a plan. He's so far away from home. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. I'm looking for the words to say. You make the world a better place, and I can call that place my home. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. So let me see just what you need to set you free, so we can be free. I saw stars fall from above. I fell in and out of love. I got high and I fell low. But now I know that I just can't do this on my own. No, I just can't do this on my own. I just can't do this on my own.